Okay, graveyard shift's always good, isn't it? We'll keep it somewhat short, try and keep it entertaining a little bit. A little bit different, I guess, from what we've heard today in terms of what we're offering, what we bring to the market at Locus. That thing that everyone hates, interactive. Hands up before today, anyone had heard of Locus Robotics? Couple at the back. Yeah, that's point at our marketing manager for a lack of content there. But that's fine. Obviously, we can talk you through more on what we do, who we are for those that don't know us. So Locus Robotics, you'll have seen a couple of our robots floating around, and as a robot, you think, okay, what's this doing? As a company, we're providing comprehensive warehouse automation solutions. In the form factor you see spinning there is a robot called Origin. We've also got robots called Vector, which have just hit the market. Essentially, what we're doing at Locus is we're taking away those traditionally very non-value added, very slow, very manual processes of a fulfillment operation, be that picking, replay, and put away. As you know, you see it, you've talked about what happens when you're standing and scanning a product, but what happens between that? You know, when you're walking, you're waving strategy, you're walking between pick locations, and you stand and you have a gossip with your mate on the way in the corner. That's completely wasted time, as we all know. And with that, as we know, with labour shortages in the market at the moment, we can't afford to have that wasted time in any fulfillment operation. So what we've got at Locus is we've got the hardware here in the form of robots, which are taking the burden of those movements. But also in the back end, we've got the software, which is driving productivity increases by putting people in the right place next to robots to allow them to do productive tasks more regularly. Funny start, first slide to put another supplier's product on there, but it helps to tell the story of where we came from at Locus. So our founders, we're an American company. Our founders worked for a third-party logistics company in the US. They went through the process, a lot of you sat here talked about in terms of going out to market, you know, identifying what your requirements are, what's the process, and then who can provide what we're looking to achieve. And they settled on these robots, these goods-to-person robots that you can see here, by name of Kiva. Implemented it into their solution, went through that whole painful process, had a few months of excitement of it working, and then Jeff Bezos and the Amazon team came, purchased Kiva and said no one else is allowed to have our toys, so they pulled it away. So our founders at the time were left with that thing saying, do we go through the whole process again, all that lost money, all that lost time? Or do we take all of those key learnings of what is on the market and crucially what is not on the market and know from that warehousing background, rather than, you know, we've got the resource from the technical development point of view, but from an understanding of how warehousing operations work, how do we take those learnings of what is available and build a solution which is going to tick everything that actually, if we could go and build something to tick everything we need, what would we build? And they went and built the Locus solution. A little bit about us. It's not a sales pitch, obviously, but just so that you know, we mentioned they're an American company. You can see here dots on the map, and every time I present this, it's slightly outdated with the growth that we've got. But you can see in terms of very much started out in North America, but we've expanded now. 3 years, just over 3 years now, we've been active in Europe. Opened a head office in Amsterdam to facilitate. We've got a brand new office just opened the last few weeks in Boston, and manufacturing production capabilities. And we're also, we've got sites supporting customers in APAC region as well. The other really nice thing about this slide is we started out as naturally as a third-party logistics company solution, essentially targeted to that as a 3PL, and with that for e-com. So if you've got, you know, 1 to 1.1 units per line of an order, someone going on and I'm ordering one bit of lipstick and one t-shirt and one jeans, you're going to have more stops in that journey, so it makes sense for this solution to fit in there. But what you can see here in terms of the different colors is actually those other industries that this solution is suitable for. So as much as e-com, we've also got customers with retail in terms of store replenishment. Healthcare is a massive growing market for us. There's a load of side benefits in terms of fewer touch points and things like that. And then industrial, you know, there's a bit of talk in terms of automotive today. From a spare parts point of view, that's a really growing market for us. In terms of anything that needs product picked accurately, quickly, and distributed, both getting it in the door and distributed out same day, essentially, when actually you can't necessarily get the heads that you need, our solution fits. equally alongside that is having a solution that is scalable. So what you'll notice with probably all of these solutions is that you have some form of peak or trend. Slightly less so in industrial, but you still get it in terms of sun's out, you get people going and driving their convertible and something breaks and they need the parts. So you still see those peaks. But very much in terms of healthcare, coming into that time now, in terms of flu season, we've got a customer over in Ireland, and they had a 15-day from order dropping in until it went out the door because they just couldn't keep up when they got really busy in flu season and injections and all that sort of stuff for vaccinations. We've put robots in and we're now on the same day. Order comes in, it's picked and dispatched in the same day with our robots. So when you're in a really time-sensitive, crucial, sort of just-in-time environment, that's where these robots really come into play. You'll recognise a lot of the customers in there, and that's just a handful of the customers that we're supporting at Locus. A lot of household names, so you've probably ordered a product from Boots or John Lewis or Adidas or one of these from a consumer end or even from professional life, which will have been picked by a Locus bot, which is quite cool. And equally here, the great thing about having a scalable solution is generally we will drop in to one site and then customers say, you know what, we've got other sites or we want to expand. Instead of investing in fixed automation and then it's very difficult to pick it up, the great thing about the robots that we've got, once you've got the infrastructure there, you can pick it up and move it or spread it across different sites. So what you see here is from our largest customers, the largest, very well publicized, I think you say it's DHL, largest customer globally, but equally, moving down, although not named, you can see the industry and how many sites that they have operating Locus bots and where in the world they're being operated. And just then, a good bit again in terms of those processes you've gone through. What's important, I've got a meeting I need to be on apparently, so get rid of that. But from the European team, it's really important you see here that the biggest makeup of our team is in customer success. And that means you've got an ongoing partner rather than someone selling you a commodity and then you're stuck with something saying, okay, how do we evolve with this? How do we develop it to suit our business as it evolves? You've got, as a partner, you've got Locus Robotics and a team there. As we know, operations change, we innovate, we bring out new features, we can then come and recommend how to implement that. Or we can say, we're doing something similar, there's a company similar to you, or they've done what you've done, here's the learnings, do you want to give it a go? That's all kind of part of our model, and I'll explain what that looks like a little later on. And essentially it's all organized for our successful customer journey. So everything that we do is based on bringing success to the users that we work with, to the customers that we work with, right through from project management in terms of the deployment and doing the testing and the go live, right through to having 24/7 support. So the great thing is people say to us, in terms of maintenance, because I come from a forklift background originally, and our forklift goes down, what's your uptime and what's your response time and what's the maintenance package? And that's kind of the thinking that we're used to in the warehousing world. The great thing about robotics is that probably 98%, 99% of any issues is I can log on, I can see what's going on, I can remotely fix it. And if not, we actually can predict based on sensors that we've got in the bots, you can predict when something's going to go wrong and build that into preventive maintenance. So the uptime is incredibly high. But the 24/7 response is there. As much as everything else you would need in that solution design optimization point to keep pushing those productivity gains even after go live. If any of you have looked at any form of warehouse automation, you'll know that probably the biggest barriers to entry, the biggest hurdle is upfront cost, naturally, but then the deployment time, are you looking at something that you're not going to be able to use for 12, 18 months? What's the ROI going to be like? You're going to have to wait another 5 years to get a return on that investment. And you start thinking, actually, by the time you've gone through that process, is it still going to be suitable for what we need? The benefit for what we're putting in here at Locus is you can drop it in with next to no infrastructure changes. 15-minute training time. So any of you could walk into one of our sites, walk up to a robot. It's so intuitive in terms of what the iPad shows you to do. We'll explain that, and start picking and pick accurately. And you can scale that fleet up and down. And that's that point in terms of Black Friday coming up. We've got customers that will add robots in, drop them in for 2 months, and then send them back. So you're not paying to be over capacity for 12 months a year when actually, it's only 2 or 3 months that you need it for. And we only operate, I'd say, on a RaaS. So RaaS is robots as a service. You might know software as a service, some in the room. So essentially it's an OpEx, right? You're paying for a robot as you would pay for a person in the same way. It's not a big CapEx investment. It's an ongoing investment where you pay monthly for the robots that you need. And that's what makes it so easy to scale up and add in different form factors as we develop them. So how does the solution work and how does it drive productivity? So step one, I should say here that we're completely WMS agnostic. So any sort of WMS, WCS, ERP that you've got, as long as, a little bit of dev work maybe to be able to set up the APIs to send a message in the structure that we can receive it, but it's pretty simple. So you send the jobs in whatever frequency you've got it. So whether that's a day, whether it's a shift, whether it's an hour, or as it drops in, you send it to Locus and we have a big job pool. And within that, we're going to optimize the order to do that based on certain rules. So if you've got, let's say, priority customers or cutoff times, we'll use those to put those to the top of the list. And then we're also going to look at what's the most efficient order to pick those in. Once that's been decided, it's going to send it down to a robot. So a robot's going to come to an induct station, as the little video showed there, and it's going to ask for a certain tote or carton type based on what the order it's holding requires. So it means if you've got, for example, we've got a client in Bista who are handling multimedia units, so they've got big vinyls that right down to little CDs. So they don't, wasted packaging. They don't all need to go because they send it, pick it straight out in the same box. So it comes up saying small, medium, large. I think they've got about 6 different box sizes that they pick into. So it's going to work out what size it needs. It's going to ask for that. You're going to induct it onto the robot. The robot's then going to optimize the shortest route to get to the first pick location. You can see there, if you leave any obstacles in the way, so if someone leaves a trolley or a pallet, the robot's going to try and get through, and if it can't, it's going to recalculate the best way to get there, and it's going to go a different way. This is all completely autonomous. No one's sat in the background controlling how the robots move or what's going on. Completely autonomous navigation there. Once the robot gets to its location, it's got these little status lights. It's going to flash green. So if I'm a picker, I'm going to go up to any nearest waiting robot that's flashing green. And on the iPad, it's going to tell me, we'll take a closer look on another slide, but you can see a little bit there. If you've got it as a simple URL link, it's going to show you a photo of the product. It's going to show you the product code, the description, the location it's being held in, and the quantity required. At that point, we've got an integrated scanner on the bottom of the iPad. For some of the different solutions, we work with partners for handheld scanners and things if you require different scanning. But we're going to scan the product and it's going to confirm where it's gone on the robot. We've got different configurations, so you can have multiple tote arrays or just one if you're batch picking. So it's going to tell you where to put it in the robot and you're going to confirm in the same way that we've heard earlier on. We've got exception handling built in there, so if it's asking for 7 and there's only 5 available, you can short it. We've got all those features. It's just going to send a message back. We're not touching inventory, but we're just sending that message to say, okay, there was 2 left. 2 short. What do you want to do at this point? And that can trigger whatever you want in terms of the rules. It can then send a message back to do another check as a cycle count, or that can trigger a replen and on. The really important bit here, because people see robots and they think, okay, I'm going to follow it. And at that point, other than saving you pushing and pulling a trolley, there's no efficiency gain. The bit with Locus that's unique is what we call clustering and sort of swarming. So we want to swarm robots around people. I want to be a person standing in an aisle and I want to have loads of robots around me. At that point, I can pick to this robot and that might go to the other side of the warehouse to get the next item it requires. I'm not going to follow it because that's the non-value added. I'm going to turn around to the next waiting robot and I'm just going to keep picking, keep being productive. That's how we see a 2 to 3x productivity gain versus a manual operation, all because of that way that we order what we pick so that robots are close to people in zones and then that zone moves around with the people. And final step, once everything's been picked, different things can happen here. So if there was an exception, you can set the robot to go off to a hospital zone and wait if you need to do a separate pick to complete, or you can send it off to its drop-off zone. Again, you can have multiple drop-off zones if you've got different courier lanes. And essentially it's going to tell someone there, okay, I'm done. You can take these totes or cartons, whatever it is. And that's kind of away from Locus and it's on to the next stage. So it goes onto a conveyor, to your pack bench, whatever it is. And then the robot's going to download, it's going to look, are there more jobs? If there is, it starts again. If not, if you ever get to a point where you've got a 0 order pool, then it's going to stop and wait until there's jobs available for it. And this is the iPad that we mentioned. So this is the user interface unique to Locus. This is all Locus view. So we've got, the first bit to start with is the Locus tag. So it's all optional, but most of our customers take it. To Locus, we have a little Bluetooth tag that you can have in your pocket, wear on your neck, and that's your profile, essentially. What it means then is when I walk up to a robot and I'm within a certain vicinity, so we've got Adam here, so Adam is now the one interacting with me, so anything that happens, i.e. any pick, is going to be associated to that person, and that's how we're tracking what they're doing and their productivity. But equally alongside that, it's their profile, right? So if you've got someone in that's preferences to speak Spanish, you set it up so that everything that's shown is in Spanish, which is increasing, obviously it's a nicer place to work for them, but also it's increasing accuracy because they can't blame misunderstanding on the language. On there, we've also got, as we discussed, in terms of where to pick, items if you've got it, the quantity, and there's a little bit on the top right as well of gamification. So you see around the photo or the avatar, that can flash kind of red or green, dependent on if you're above or below what you've got your average UPH or LPH productivity set at, and you've got a little trophy there if you're the top for the shift or the day. Again, that's a feature that can be turned on or off, but it's a nice little, human nature is competitive, so if you see that you're kind of one of the slowest on the shift, then you're probably going to speed up a little bit. But equally, actually, it just gives, rather than it needing to be a carrot rather than stick, all that sort of stuff, how do we use that data just to drive people to be a bit more efficient? And then also on that, different languages there. And then in the middle, you see the robot proximity indicator. So if you don't have a robot near to you, once you've completed a pick, it's telling you there which aisles the nearest robots are in, so you can just go straight to it. So this is one of our customers in the UK, iForce. So this is a very dense area, but you can see just here, here's how we're trying to get robots all in that one area. So we will have had a great big order pool, and we're almost ignoring the two aisles that might be alongside, because we want to pick everything that's available in this space now. And once we've picked everything here, those robots are then, and the zone is going to move down a little bit on that aisle or to a different aisle, instead of having robots dotted about everywhere and having to walk between. So that's a really nice just sort of visual aid on how that clustering and swarming works. And I'm here in terms of a larger form factor, so we mentioned Vector. So Origin is great for smaller, lighter weight products, really nimble applications. It's got a 36 kilogram payload on that one. This new bot Vector's got a 272 kilogram payload and can either have a fixed shelf, or it can interact with carts like this or pallet dollies, so dependent on your processes and your application. We want to be able to drop in the solution straight away to suit what you're doing, rather than you have to change your processes to suit what you're putting in. So a great application here that we're essentially just broadening our horizons in terms of being able to handle more in terms of those movements, be it point to point, be it still picking, be it replaying, as we said, all going under that one Locus hat. And we've got a solution that can handle those different processes without any different systems needing. You can have different robots on the same site, all fully integrated in the same way. Just to explain there, as I said, in terms of weights, capacities, and really important to say in terms of being configurable in different ways to suit what it is you're trying to do. So a little bit of a catwalk there of all of the different configurations. So garment handling, we've got drinks in the room. So, we've got a wine subscription, services customer, automotive parts, as you mentioned, almost anything, you name it, we're handling it somewhere. And then outside of that, the robots look great and that's all good, but we had the thing about data, right? We've got data and we've got AI and how we're using that. Now, traditionally, we captured the data and then you run a report and you say, this is what's happened and this is why this maybe happened well or not. So next time, do this, right? And that's great, but what we want is to be able to see it ahead of time. We don't want to be reactive, we want to be proactive. So what we've released is something called Locus Hub, which essentially is taking AI by way of, we know the patterns and the trends of what happens in a warehouse. We know when people at certain hours of the day, how productive they are. We know where they're based, how productive they're going to be, based on a type of product, how long that scanning time is. So with that, we can show all of this data in terms of, based on the zones in the warehouse. You'll see it on here in a moment. We can say for the next hour or for that shift, we can see that you've got X number of picks in a certain zone, and you've currently got 2 people in that area, whereas we know based on that productivity that they're currently seeing, you need 4. So it's going to tell the operators or the supervisors, put 2 people over there because you've not got enough at the moment to reach the throughput that you require for the day. Same for assets. So you can see here what's happening. That's robots, that's the additional scanners, it's chargers. You've got everything under one roof telling you there, okay, how much have you got available by way of robots? How many of them need to charge? What's the battery life looking like? All of those things that allow an operator to be as efficient as possible, and all those things that allow an operations management team to make justified, insightful decisions based on the data rather than just gut feeling. So this is all part of the solution. I say it's all included in the cost of the robots, but this is equally as powerful as what you see by way of robot, which is very clever. All the software in the back end actually is what really drives those improvements, right? In terms of being more productive, being more efficient, being safer, being more accurate, all those great things that you see as side benefits is all at your fingertips there, all these different dashboards. If you're bringing new staff in terms of agency, you can induct them on there, you can do that short-term training. And equally, if you saw that someone is slower, then maybe you just need to move them to a different zone, right? So rather than saying, oh, they're just slow, let's get rid of them, you can really see why is everything happening in that certain way. And it's important to say, if I'm a picker in the warehouse with the same robot, I can do those different processes. So I can be picking at one time, and I'm going to turn around and I'm putting away product into the storage locations. I'm doing replenishment, I'm doing cycle counting, I'm setting up a point-to-point. So you don't need different people or different robots for all of those different processes. It's all interleaved, it's all part of that one solution. It's not additional training, it's just a movement in reverse, essentially, and it's all completely shown what to do and how to do it. That RAS pricing, as say, so not to get too much into commercials, but just good to know if you're talking about this or hear of robots as a service. It very simply is, there's a one-time setup fee to essentially get the network in, get the robots talking and moving. There's the cost of the robots per month as your core fleet, and then if there's a decision, say for a month or two, as we need additional robots, there's that cost separately. Because of that, we generally see an ROI within 12 months. Even at minimum scale, so minimum scale is about 10 robots, it could be 12 to 18 months, but certainly within a 3-year contract, so there's always going to be benefit there. But we've got sites with 10 robots right up to 800-900 robots. So it's not just a solution, as a stepping stone, it's not semi-automation to a degree. We've got huge, great sites, 1 million+ square foot with, 800-900 robots, getting massive benefit. Equally at the lower scale, 10 robots, going from 10 down to 5 pickers, because normally we'd see somewhere around 30 to 60% reduction in headcount requirement versus a manual operation. So it's a solution essentially that fits all. And that's just to showcase there the peaky nature of most operations as we know it, especially and this could be representative of within a day, that shape of the day. It could be a week, a month, or for the year. So our solution is very much trying to provide flex in terms of how you pay for the robots, how you have them available to suit a very unpredictable and shaky throughput. And some of you hadn't heard of Locus, so you might not have probably heard of what we've done at Boots, but Boots is our first European customer. And actually that flexibility and scalability was highlighted best by this case study. We went live with Boots, Burton-on-Trent site, back end of 2019. So they went through their busiest peak at Black Friday before Christmas. Robots went in, broke records, and then if we all remember that far back now, we hit COVID very shortly afterwards. All the stores closed, everyone started ordering PPE and cosmetics online. So we went from having 15 robots to 220 robots on site at Boots, 3 shifts straight away, almost overnight, as quickly as we can get robots there. And they're still operating now, they're going into their peak again. They've got 180 bots on site at the moment, but they flex with that model just to suit what's happening in the world, what's happening with their business. So that's probably the best, or one of the best indications of how a solution can provide immediate benefit, but also flex to suit what a customer requires at any one time. And the question that we get, how quickly can we have it? Somewhere up to about 12 weeks generally. We say 4 weeks if it's an existing customer, if we've done that integration. 12 to 16 weeks is if it's a brand new site, whether it's greenfield or brownfield. Again, it can just drop in. The integration bit is obviously the resource that you as a customer has available. We've got partners, we've got in-house support that can help with that integration. But generally speaking, as you said, 3 months, we can go through the whole way of concept design. How many robots do we need? What's the productivity gain going to be? What's the cost? What's the ROI? Right through to go live, and then obviously the ongoing support after that. to keep those improvements. And this is just, again, representative of that ongoing support, which is really important, even if you're not going with Locus, if you're looking at any automation vendor, if you're going to go through that process. A couple of things that we 100% recommend. One, ask them to go and see the site. We say seeing is believing. It's a really cheesy American tagline, but seeing is believing, because it's great to show a video when it's working well, but go and see a customer site and ask them to step away, ask the users, what that process looked like, what would they do differently. We'd really encourage that. And full visibility on, okay, what's the data? What are these improvements looking like? What's on the roadmap? All those great things in terms of just getting confidence that you're getting into bed with a vendor that's going to be there for you in a few years' time. Hopefully I'm on time at the end there. Quick run through. So. Any questions? Any questions? The bar opened 3 minutes ago, I think, so that's probably...
If I'm wrong, are there any limitations on the terrain you work on?
Yeah, to a degree, yeah. I mean, we can handle slight gradient, but yeah, it's limited, especially fully laden, as you'd expect. I'll have to dig out based on the robots exactly what we can do percentage-wise. But in terms of floor, in terms of operating environments, it's actually quite durable. The robots, especially the larger vector bot, as a sort of heavier duty, it's got Mecanum wheels that can go over debris and other things. The only floor type, because we can go on mezzanines, we can go on peak towers that traditionally have quite a lightweight chipboard. We're fine on that. It's only really if it's a sort of fire grating mesh, the bots struggle on a bit just because of the vibrations. That's kind of the only reason it struggles a bit there. We can't yet go frozen. Some of you, I guess, in sensors and things will know in terms of condensation on sensors and wheel spinning and all that sort of stuff. But we're in chilled applications for pharmaceutical applications. So we're down at about 3 or 4 degrees, I think, at the lowest. So have you got a thought in mind in terms of a ramp or something? Is that we can have a look. I mean, generally, no, not really. I mean, slightly, not really a ramp. But we can have a look if you've got something in mind.
And just follow on that, I noticed that on the vector, it was typically moving around something that could also have wheels on it.
Mm-hmm.
Use other equipment like an existing stillage which doesn't have wheels?
No, so currently we have to supply whatever that is going to like. So be that a cage or a stillage, as you say. Simply through C certification and testing, if we go in and try and integrate with something else, it's not compatible necessarily in terms of field of vision, in terms of safety. So that's why we have to supply it at the moment. We can interact with things that don't have wheels to a degree, but generally, like you saw there, is actually, although the dolly that you saw had wheels on it, what it's doing, Vector's going underneath and it's got the lift pad. So it's not lifting the wheels off the floor, it's just taking the weight. So the wheels are still touching the floor, but they're not required for guidance or anything like that. It's something that, here in the UK, right, roll cages and stillages, and especially in automotive and industrial, there's a huge thing in terms of how do we move, big stillages and big handling units. But it's important to say that, Vector, we've bought out, we're bringing out new solutions next year and again, and we'll evolve. So we look at, what's going to make the biggest impact in the market, what's the biggest requirement, and development team are kind of looking at that. So stay tuned, I guess, and, maybe 6 months to a year, maybe that'll be the next step. Okay.
Brilliant. The few objections I have within talking is that optimizing of the route is done to minimize the distance to make the most efficient route. I was in discussion with one of the unions who said, well, we don't like that because when you pick the items of various weight and size, our members know the heavy items and what they want then at the bottom of the cake for obvious reasons, so they want to pick those first and then fill up with other items. One, is that something that you've also heard back? And two, I assume that in your logic, you could accommodate to that to optimize on size, weight,
correct.
Combination instead of the shortest distance.
Yeah, so we, who was it again that said crap in, crap out? So was it you, Nigel? It's dependent on the weights and dims data that the customer's got. If you can send that and it's accurate, then yeah, we can set rules to say so either against the item master, or you can set a rule to say just heaviest first. Generally, we would set a line where there's a point when it gets to a certain weight where it doesn't matter, but at least say, okay, heaviest first. And it's getting that balance, right? It's between, okay, if there's a rule that's really important there, and it depends if it is going straight out or if it's going to be consolidated somewhere. You know, there's a load of things that we'll throw in there. So, you know, this is a task execution platform that will do what you ask it to do. And then we've got a load of tools there to say, maybe here's a better way of doing it or a more efficient way. But we're going to take all of those rules and parameters, and that's a really good example into. And what we might say at that point, and it's not ideal, but it might be that, okay, if you've got a load of heavy items, is it a case of slotting strategies and moving them around? It depends how many times they're being touched, and all those different things that we'll look at as well to maybe do a bit of warehouse design, just to make sure that there's no bottlenecks and we're still getting those efficiency gains whilst thinking about those bits. I thought what you were going to say with the unions was that they want people walking, right? I got a question in the interview saying, well, what, you're reducing walking, but it's healthy to walk, right? Yeah, but you don't want to be walking, 18 miles a day, which is what can happen with a manual environment. So, our system would be nothing without the people. It still needs people there. They're still moving between robots, but they're getting home at the end of the day not knackered, right? So they're still walking, they're still healthy, they're not standing at a point all day, which is when it gets to the point of uncomfortable, and there's fixed automation which has that. And actually, I was at a site yesterday with a goods to person solution, and they said they have to change people over every 2 hours because they're just standing and items brought to them, and that's really strenuous. So actually, this is kind of a blend of the two. People are still walking, still, an element of health gain to that, but not to the level of exceeding what's comfortable.
Brilliant.
Come and see us. Any questions after?